Firstly, Assalamu alaikum to everybody there. Happy National Day. I know you must be relaxing, so the last thing you want to do is to have some guy coming in here talking about all sorts of funky things. But I hope I'll do justice to your time and to your attention. I'm humbled to be here. The AI Society under Fatma Bathman, Dr. Fatma, invited me, and I'm very privileged to be here. Now today, over the last couple of days, you must have heard all sorts of things about science, technology, products, applications, cloud, all this kind of stuff that's going on. I want to do something different. I want to go deeper. I want to go that pulls everything together. I want to tie all of these elements that we don't think about enough. And those elements to me, and the key that drives everything all over the world today is trust. Trust is that invisible glue. Trust is that connection which keeps everything together. Just think of the world today. You can't travel because lack of trust. The two airlines have to trust each other, two governments have to trust each other. So the whole thing has come to a standstill because of the issue of trust. And to restart all of that, trust becomes relevant again. So it affects not only our day-to-day lives, but it also affects every single thing that we do in business, at home, in life, everywhere. And the core of all of this thing is trust. Trust is the link between uncertainty and certainty, and the bridge in between. That element is where trust resides. So today what I'm going to do is a deep dive into trust and then explain what it is. And there are lots and lots of different kinds of trust, and I'll explain all of those. And then apply it into business, and then into leadership, and then into technology. And that is how we will wrap up today's session. So let me allow me to share my screen because I think it'd be nice to share some interesting items that we've got. So I hope you can see this, and my controller will tell us whether we can see this. I hope we can. Okay, so this is where the world is today. And the world, this whole environment has to be connected through this invisible glue, which we call trust. And that invisible glue is, in the post-COVID future, it's become 100 times more important than the pre-COVID future. It was always important. Now, at this moment in time, quickly we'll talk about, there are 4 pandemics going on. Do you think there's one pandemic? Yes, of course there is one, which is the virus which is invading our physical body. But beyond that, a sense of isolation, people are at home, it invades our social relationships. We have fear, and that invades our emotions. And we also have a pandemic of security or insecurity that invades our finances and our future. And this is one of the key things that we all are struggling with. But bigger than this is the fear and the pandemic of misinformation, disinformation, and too much information. And all of that coming together creates this environment. So trust, therefore, becomes even more important, and a different set of questions start getting asked. The first question, and I will be asking a lot of questions today, because today is about asking questions rather than just providing answers. And I want you to think with me all the way through. So the first question for today is, what has changed in you in the last 6 months? Family relationships, personal outcomes, all sorts of things have changed. So we need to be able to address that. So what we will address today is, why is trust so important? What is trust? And who should we trust? Think about that. That's really important. Who should we trust? What should we trust? And why trust is important? So as we look forward into the future, there are many elements of where trust clicks in. And the key questions is how to build trust in uncertain times. A lot of funny things are going on in the world today. And how is trust or lack of trust affecting our economies? I explained the air travel industry, the restaurant industry, many, many things are being affected by the element of trust. And how is trust or lack of trust transforming our behavior? We work differently, we think differently. We walk into a lift and we all stop because there is an element, do we trust that person? And that is the question of, why is trust becoming so critical? And why are these relationships changing again and the role of transparency in trust. And I'll address all of these issues today, all of these questions. Now, there's another closely related relationship is social capital. Social capital is what countries go through, and that is how countries who are doing well pull their communities together through participation, belonging, engagement, but also through trust. So countries and governments have to build social capital. The other one is collective intelligence and collective consciousness. There are millions, there are over 100 to 150 million people in the world coming together today to identify and fight one enemy. For once in our lifetimes, we have one enemy, and that's the coronavirus. And that collective intelligence will kill this, will beat this. And all of this is tied together with trust, because people have to share information and so on. And never since World War II has that happened. So let me just go a little bit deeper into what is trust. Trust, a lot of people think it's about honesty. It's about honesty, but there's also many other things. And global trust platforms have to be created. It could be institutions and so on. Trust is a new currency, a currency that we can relate with. And if you trust people and you trust organizations, the value of that company goes up. So trust is a currency. Ambient trust is trust that you have within your community. So in the good old days, if you were a person working in a village, people trusted you. If you were a doctor in a small environment, you knew there was this trust around that. So it was easy to work within that environment. That's called ambient trust. Hard trust and soft trust. Hard trust is about transactions, about things that you do, competence, reliability, consistency. Soft trust is about feelings and emotions and empathy and trust and honesty. So what we do is we create a trust barometer, like a meter of trust, and then we look within that. And all of these new trust institutions that are being created as we go forward. So one of the phrases we talk about is scarcity. Scarcity means not having enough. Not having enough in our current world is abundance, which means having everything, minus trust. So if we are not fulfilling our objectives with regards to our businesses or our economies and so on, there's a scarcity of trust. And that is something that we need to be consciously looking at. What I wanted to do is to take a step back and look at the world. And 75% of the current companies, which were born 10, 15, 20 years ago or more, will die by 2025. 75% of the companies. And most of the companies are built on previous ideas, and 50% of those companies will be replaced by companies that don't exist today. So for startups, for young groups, it is everything to play for. We need to move away from linear, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, to an exponential mindset, which is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. It grows and doubles every time. And there are many existential threats like climate change and so on, and everything is changing. In this change, what is happening is the layers and layers of technologies are coming together and they're getting digitized. And these elements are creating societal disruption on the one side, political, financial, social, as we all can see in the world today. But it also is creating a sense of abundance that has never happened before. It is unprecedented. While this institutional disruption is going on, marriage, democracy, education, every single thing is changing. Now, if we are living to 80 years today, now suddenly we live to 280 years, our marriage in the future is going to be 250 years long. It will change the game, and so will healthcare, and so will various other things. So we need to be looking at things differently. So there is something which I very interesting, which I discovered. It's somebody called Johannes Gutenberg. He invented the printing press, and this was in 1450. And when he invented the printing press, everything changed. Education changed, commerce changed, banking changed, religion changed, because now you could actually put all our religious books in paper. So printing became the fundamental change, and that's called a Gutenberg moment, the world change. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have something like 25 Gutenberg moments happening simultaneously, of which 15 of them are happening in the next 1 to 5 years. And then they are crossing over each other. So when nanotech crosses over with genome sequencing and crosses over with, say, quantum computing, what will happen? This is what starts accelerating these intersections. And this is something we have to look at. Now, the reason it's important, and the reason I'm mentioning it to you, is that we need to start building institutions of trust and environments of trust, because lot of unintended questions are going to happen, outcomes are going to happen. We need to be able to address that. Now, all industries are being affected by COVID and by asymmetric movement, and the disruption is happening. And when this disruption happens, we need to be very careful what we trust, what we don't trust. And things like pharma, food, education, all of it is fundamentally changing. Every single thing we used to say 9 months ago, it's impossible. Today, everything is possible. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said a couple of months ago that more digital transformation has happened in the previous 4 months than the previous 10 years. That is how much it's been accelerated. Take e-commerce, and in the United States in particular, where the statistic was from, that more acceptance of e-commerce and usage of e-commerce has happened in the previous 4 months than would happen in the previous 10 years. So that value component has changed. So things are happening in 3 or 4 months, massively accelerated, and then how we need to go into the future. Now, when anything that happens in the future, we have an element of uncertainty. So let me just share a fun example of something that is quite real. And that is this. I'll take you back 100, 120 years. This is New York City. This is Easter Day. There's a parade on Fifth Avenue. And all you see is horse and carts and these little buggies that are there. Do you see any cars there? Well, there are only 2 of them there. So what would, if you went to a guy who's driving this horse and cart and ask him, what would you want to improve your business? You know what they turn around and say, 9 out of 10? They'll say, we want faster horses. We want bigger buggies. That's all they will ask. Fast forward 13 years, not a single horse. Every single thing disappeared. Ford Motor Company came in and moved. This, ladies and gentlemen, is happening in every single industry that we are looking at in our lives. And this happened 120 years ago. Self-driving cars will come overnight and change. Now, what is happening is that we as human beings have something called an immune system. It's our protection mechanism. It's something in the back of our head. It's a gland here in the brain. It's called the amygdala. And it's our fight or flight mechanism. So what we say is whenever there is change and it's changing our norm, we say, oh, that's not going to work. It's immeasurable. It's a stupid idea. It'll probably fail. Individuals have that and companies have that. And we call it an immune system. We need to build the resilience and courage within this environment. Again, we need to be trusting each other and working with each other to do that. Now, whenever change happens, change comes and hits you when you least expect it and from a place that you least expect. And this is the key. So if you are looking at your business and you got your head down and thinking only about your business, don't, because you are going to come and get hit like this guy from a place which is unexpected. And that's the difference, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what I beseech you to look at, is look left and right. Look at the adjacencies. Telecoms business is not the telecoms business anymore. It used to be a vertical. Today it's a horizontal because it's getting into financial services and everything else. This is a Saudi mobile show. Mobility can link into healthcare. It can link into financial services and many, many other things. I've kept this image in front of you for so long because I want you to feel the pain. This is how it will come and hit you. So, trust, how did it start? It used to be local in your village, more distant. Then it started becoming networked and distributed. Now, in the post-corona environment, I call it a PC world. In the post-corona world, it is hypersensitive, hyper-validated, hyper-verified, and multiple responsibilities and mutual responsibilities is how the future of trust is going to be. But let's look at some types of trust, and I've already spoken about some of these, but one of the things I'd like to mention and address is trust jumps and trust leaps. So when we trust something new, like technology, so for example, cruise control in a car, the first time we used it, we were scared. It's just but once we use it, everybody can use it all the time. The same thing is going to happen with self-driving cars. Today, you will not put your child into a car, even though you know it's safe, into a self-driving car and say, please take my child to school. But in 5 years' time, we will make that trust jump through technology and take that forward. Another trust jump is something like Airbnb. Airbnb, who would have thought that using a platform, we start trusting the platform and the information on the platform, that we'll have strange people coming and living in our homes. And same with Uber, we would have some guy coming in with all his details and stuff like how we use all of that. So trust leaps and trust jumps are things that are happening in our lives. And automation is a classic example, and I'll give you some statistics. So moving forward, one of the questions we need to be asking ourselves, do we trust our boards? Do we trust our executive teams? And the answer generally is not really. In the UK, in the US actually, there was a study done in the financial services sector that only 28% of the people trust their banks to be honest and fair. Banks to be honest and fair. Shame on the boards, shame on the banks who people cannot even trust for honesty and fairness. So the left-hand side is where the boards are, the right-hand side is where the boards are going. And I think this is something we need to be looked at. Now, a lot of people are flying blind into 2021 and saying, yeah, well, we know what we need. We've done this always in the past, therefore we can do it again. The future is not going to work like that. We need to have a different kind of ecosystem and a multi-dimensional board with a fresh lens and a new lens and new frameworks, because the bridge is broken. My guru, Marshall Goldsmith, Professor Marshall Goldsmith, has written an amazing book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So ladies and gentlemen, whatever got you here to 2020 will not take you into 2021. You need a new set of rules and a new set of thinking. When we look into the future, we need to look into a telescope. Microscope we are very good at, but we need to look at the telescope. So when we look into the telescope and learn new things, we need to be trusting our knowledge, trusting our instinct, trusting our courage, trusting our intuition, trusting all of those new elements that we need to be able to drive that. So when we do scenario planning, we do the first 3 to 6 month scenario, which is where we are at the moment. And in this scenario, we just literally put our oxygen mask on before we were to help people. Now we're slowly getting into, from next month, into the 6 to 12 month time horizon, which is to build resilience and resourcefulness. This is the time for mergers and acquisitions. This is the time of working with each other. This is the time to trust each other. This is the time to engage with each other and building that layer and institutions and links of trust, taking those trust leaps to move forward, because the old rules are not working anymore. And then in 12 months' time from today, we'll have to reinvent ourselves again, because there will be a virus, there will be something new that is going to be affecting us. Now, in this environment, anybody who says, I have a 5-year plan, throw it out. It's irrelevant. Nobody knows how fast things are going to change in 5 years. It will be obsolete within 2. So we need to work on faster cycles, shorter cycles of adaptation. And this is what's going to make us resilient as we go forward. And we move from products to platforms and ecosystem, and that is where a lot of the work that we do. When we look at companies and we advise them, this is the sort of roadmap we look at and say, we need to transform leadership, but we need to leverage our data. We need to set up a Google X equivalent where we are supporting and trusting young people who come up with ideas and creativity. And this is one of the bits of advice we do. Another thing we work on is we apply the human mind, which has amazing capability of imagination and creativity as we go forward, with the organizational brain. And the two of them, when they overlap, that is where great projects are created. And we need to build trust within teams and organizations to be able to do that. Now, you've seen a lot of this. Do you feel here with all of these changes? Or do you feel a sense of hope? Now, here is a lady, she's a grandmother, she's in a Tesla car. First time, and this has been out for a couple of years, and she's been put in this self-driving Tesla car, and just see what happens to her. She's completely safe, and her trainer is with her. So here we go.
It's scary. Oh, there's cars coming. Oh, there's cars. Bill, this, put me back for me controlling. Oh, dear Jesus. I could never. Oh, where's it going? God damn, Bill. Oh, my God. This is so scary. Oh, Jesus, this is my first day out. I'm about to die.
Oh, come on, relax.
Oh my God, Bill. I couldn't do it. Oh! Oh, is the car coming? Just, oh my God, they're going to hit us. Oh, it's,
Yeah, hit the brakes, hit the brakes.
My
Right.
Jesus.
Now you're
Gentlemen,
done.
I played this whole video because I wanted you to feel her pain. Now, what was she worried about? The only thing that happened there was that she lost control.
Unfortunately, the screen was
Stuck.
was not, yeah, freezing.
All right, so no worries.
Sorry.
I'll go through so the lady was basically, she couldn't hold the steering wheel, so she had to take her hands away from it, and she was really sort of screaming and shouting because she was totally scared. So what it is, it's about losing self-control. So what is happening in this corona world, post-corona world, what is happening in our modern changing world with AI and technology and everything else is we are losing control. There's not just the scream of an old lady, it's the scream of STC and Etisalat when WhatsApp comes in. It's the scream of the Road Transport Authority when Careem or Uber comes in. It's the scream of society when technology comes in. And AI scares a lot of people just because we start losing control. So in all of this environment, what we need to do is to build personal resilience, our personal health, our environment, and make ourselves personally so strong, both brain and body, that we can basically manage the world. Now, during this corona crisis, there were some leaders that had been identified as providing the best response during this particular crisis. And New Zealand was leading, Taiwan was leading, and other countries. Now, all of these leaders have done an amazing, amazing job because on the one hand, they had compassion and empathy, and on the other side, they had competence and science, and they brought it together. And if you notice, all of the leaders who have led this particular crisis, there are others too, but these are some of the more notable ones. They're all women. And this is a very important data point that in this new world, we need to be looking at humanity, compassion, and empathy. Whenever there is an exponential crisis, we need exponential empathy and exponential compassion. And that is what a lot of these women were showing. Another quick data point before I start ending, that 64% of the people trust a robot more than they trust their manager. Oracle study from last year. Amazing. And 82% of them said that the robot and my AI is performing better than my manager and my colleagues. 82. Now, what is happening here is that we have made a trust leap towards automation, towards repetitive automation. And that is how the world is changing. And this is why I chose this topic today. We need to be able to understand the dynamics of trust, the elements of trust, how it all comes together. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand the massive change that's coming on around us. And how do you trust automation in the future? And so a very, very close relationship to trust, which is even closer to my heart in many ways, is ethics. Can we trust that robot has an ethical view of the world? Can we trust our drone that it will plant seeds rather than drop bombs? This is the kind of trust that we need to start building. Now, when we can't talk about trust without talking about media. When we look at media all over the world, fake news, the phrase has become a day-to-day thing, that people have lost faith. There are only about 22 people who trust media. It's incredible. They've lost the baseline of trust. So we start ignoring it. So in the future, there was a study done recently, and they compared newspapers, television, various mechanisms, even online, and said which will be the #1 most trusted source of content. And it was an AI-driven bot. That all of us will have our personal AI and our personal feeds that go in and look at the most trustworthy sources and provide us that. So we don't fall into some little bubble on Facebook or Twitter and we only get reinforced with that. Because with trust, all the algorithms are controlling our behavior. They are basically hacking our brain. These algorithms hack our brain, know exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to respond, and then they sell the products to us. So we need to start building within that trust. So to conclude, all of these changes are fine, but we need to ask ourselves the question that what truly matters, what is really all this world is all about. And this is where I say we really go back to our basics, or go forward to our basics, to family and serving God and developing our full potential and fulfilling our purpose, our meaning. This is what we are about as humans. As the world goes forward, the more technology we have, the more human we need to become. The more technology comes into our lives, the more alert and aware we need to be about our humanity, our compassion, our empathy. All of those things become the key factor. So within all of this, which everything pulls everything together, trust becomes our most valuable asset, in harmony with values, ethics, empathy, love, compassion, humanity, intuition, all of the things that make us human. So I know this is a technology conference, but it's actually humanity which is going to drive our future. It is mindset which is going to lead us. It's the ability to trust each other is going to keep things moving and keep this globe moving. And this is the basis of this entire presentation. And let us build that sustainable world around us, built on trust and ethics. And that is my core message for today. I know it took us away from technology, but I hope you got enough of a feel of technology as I was presenting. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. It's been really nice. I think I do agree with you in most of the things that you have presented, and the call for building trust when it comes to AI and technology, it is very important. And I've been calling for proof of trust and proof of trust and more proof of security when it comes to technology and AI. From your experience, when it comes to dealing with people and understanding the different behavior, do you believe that AI can also assist organizations in bringing better, sustainable community within an organization together in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fatma. And thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing at the AI Society and for this event. It's a really important question. AI is only as good as the information that we initially provided. So, and then it goes into machine learning and learns very, very rapidly in terms of repetitive behavior. We are still at the narrow AI phase, and we haven't gone into the next level of AI, artificial general intelligence. So we are still away from AI judging things and assessing things. It can provide us data, but we as human beings need to be able to understand what's going on to enable that to happen. So that's the first issue. The second is that we need to go back to school, or go forward to school and learn about ethics, about anthropology and human behavior, about psychology, about philosophy, and the big ideas and the big questions. So when we are designing anything to do with AI and our algorithms, we need to be able to build in our ethical framework within that so that it can learn accordingly. And I think that is another one of the very important issues that are there. As I said, 64% in this Oracle study trust their managers more, their robot more than their managers. And the reason is that a lot of our work has become repetitive. Where it's repetitive, AI will win 99 times out of 100. But where it is human and touch and feel and connection and humanity, the humans will win. Another part of that study was that the only place where humans were winning was in guidance, coaching, and counseling. That's it. Everywhere else, AI, machine learning, robotics were taking the lead. The other thing, which is quite scary in my opinion, is are the algorithms. We're run by algorithms, and it's the bigger the companies are becoming, like the Amazons of this world and Alibabas and so on. They have so much data, they have so much behavior that they're able to hack our brains, and they know our behavior set and they know our responses, and it learns very, very very fast. So we also need to be extremely careful and extremely alert that we only make decisions and we only use data and AI to support us, to augment us, but not to lead us. We need to remain in the lead. Give them all the boring, dirty work to do for humanity and for whatever. Let the robots go and do the farming and whatever they have to do. But let us remain in charge and in control of decisions of the future, and that is how the only way we can actually move forward. I hope that answers your question, Dr. Fatma. I feel that organizations cannot leave what I would call judgment-based decision-making to any kind of AI. The AI provides us with data. There's a very wonderful company in Seattle, which is, to tell you a quick story. There's a company called Sekara. What Sekara is basically is that it has a cell phone or an iPad in front, which is voice activated and recognizes voice. So when the doctor, the consultant, is advising the patient, it actually captures all of that through voice and does a voice to text translation, goes and does all the research simultaneously. And by the time a 5-minute, 10-minute consultation is completed, all of the data, all of the backup, all of the information is available to the doctor to give better advice to the patient. That, to me, is the most beautiful way of using AI. And that can happen in financial services, that can happen in every single thing. And this is how I want to use my AI, to give me information to make better decisions. So I become more creative. I'm there for judgment, for feeling, for humanity, for connection, but an AI keeps giving me the data. I mean, I have a photographic memory, and I remember as I was growing up, I remember 200, 300, 400 telephone numbers. I remember all my credit card numbers and so on. And over the last 10 years, I think I've become dumb because I can barely remember 3 or 4, because every single thing is in my cell phone. So we stopped using our brain and basically outsourced our brain to our cell phone for all the information that is there. In the future, Neuralink, which is Elon Musk thing, they're putting chips in the brain, and those chips are going to be connected to the cloud and have total information available to come to our brain. But it is our brain, and we make the call and we make the decision. So I think that's something that we need to be careful to use our brain as the final frontier and our heart as the final decision maker.
Thank you very much for sharing your opinion with us. Thank you very much for sharing your advices, your experiences, and your vision as well. We really appreciate you being with us today. Thank you, Tariq. You've done a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma, and thank you to everybody else who was there. And I wish you a very good conference. I know it's another day to go. A lot of hard work, but you've done amazing things. And I'm sure the impact of what you're doing is going to start showing through. And you do it with humanity, and you do it with a view to change the world in a positive way for women, for companies, for your country, and for all of us around. So, Dr. Fatma, you're a superstar. Thank you very much indeed. And hope to catch up soon. Thank you. Goodbye.